Today, we're telling you the real story of one of the most talked about criminals of the last decade, a man the world knew as Hush Puppy. On the morning of October 15th, 2019, a paralegal at a law firm in New York opened an email from her bank contact. Everything about it looked right. The name, the tone, the formatting, even the signature block. She approved the wire. $922,857 left the firm's account and vanished, rerouted in the final seconds into a bank account that had nothing to do with the deal it was supposed to fund. That single transfer was a rounding error, because federal prosecutors would later say the network behind it had conspired to launder more than $300 million in just 18 months. This is the story of how one man went from broke to allegedly running one of the largest money laundering operations the FBI has ever dismantled, and exactly how the whole thing came apart. Before the private jets, before the fleet of rented supercars, before the $230,000 watches, there was poverty, the real, unglamorous kind, the kind where a family gets evicted from a rented room, where a hospital bill you can't pay decides who lives and who doesn't. That's the world Ramon Abbas, the man the internet would come to know as Hush Puppy, grew up in a working-class neighborhood on the edge of a Lagos lagoon. By his own account, that kind of poverty leaves a mark that doesn't fade. It leaves a promise. And for Abbas, that promise was simple. He would never, ever be broke again, whatever it took. What it took, it turns out, was building one of the most sophisticated fraud and money laundering networks cybercrime investigators had ever traced back to a single, identifiable person. Here's what makes this case different from almost every other cybercrime story you've heard. Abbas wasn't the one breaking into systems. He didn't write malware. He didn't need to. His specialty was infrastructure, the plumbing that international fraud depends on to survive. Stolen money sitting in one traceable account is worthless. Stolen money split across a dozen shell companies, shuffled through corporate bank accounts on 4 continents, and rerouted before any bank can react. That's a fortune permanently out of reach. That was the business Abbas built. Clean corporate accounts in Mexico, Kenya, Romania, Bulgaria, and beyond, ready and waiting to receive stolen funds the moment they landed, often before the victim even knew the money was gone. He worked alongside a small circle of international partners who moved in the same circles, each supplying a different piece of the pipeline. By 2017, that business had relocated him to Dubai, a city where staggering, visible wealth was the norm, which made his fabricated fortune blend in seamlessly with people who had actually earned theirs. Behind the 5-star hotel suites and the rented Rolls-Royces, prosecutors say the machine was quietly scaling into a $300 million operation. If this story has you hooked, this is exactly what we do every single day on Giant Theft. Hit that like button right now, drop a comment telling us what part of this shocked you the most, and subscribe so you're here for the next case. Now, back to it. So how does one network move $300 million without ever touching a gun, a mask, or a getaway car? Most of it ran on a technique called business email compromise. According to the FBI, one of the costliest categories of cybercrime on Earth, responsible for over $14 billion in reported U.S. losses between 2013 and 2021 alone. The formula was almost elegant in its simplicity. Infiltrate a real, ongoing email conversation, often between a business, a client, and a bank. Wait for a legitimate transaction to already be in motion. Then, at the exact right moment, send a revised invoice or wire instruction that changes just one detail: the routing and account number. No hacking required in the technical sense. No brute force attack. Just patience, research, and a spoofed email good enough to fool a professional who deals with these exact transactions every single day. The moment the money landed, the second half of the machine kicked in. Funds were immediately split across multiple accounts, pushed through shell companies and secondary mule accounts, and routed internationally, all before a bank or a victim had any real chance to freeze it. Speed was the entire model. The network only had to outrun the paperwork. This wasn't one scheme. It was a repeatable formula deployed against wildly different targets all at once. That October 2019 wire from our opening was textbook business email compromise, run against a New York law firm in the middle of a real estate refinancing deal. The stolen $922,857 moved into the network's accounts within hours, long before anyone realized what had happened. A businessman trying to secure a $15 million loan to fund a children's school was targeted next. Sold a completely fabricated financing operation, complete with a fake bank website and impersonated bank officials. By the time it unraveled, he lost well over $1 million in staged fees and taxes he was told he needed to pay to unlock the loan. Investigators later tied some of that stolen money directly to a $230,000 luxury watch, flown in specifically for a boss. In 2019, prosecutors alleged the network helped launder roughly $14.7 million stolen from a bank in Malta. Funds tied to a cyber heist U.S. authorities have publicly attributed to North Korean state-linked hackers, with the proceeds allegedly destined for the North Korean government. The network's role, supplying the overseas accounts needed to absorb and move the money once it crossed borders. And then the largest piece of all, that same year, the network allegedly positioned itself to launder proceeds from a scheme targeting a professional English football club and a related British company, connected to attempted thefts of up to $124 million. Court documents describe Abbas personally offering up a Mexican bank account he claimed could handle millions and not block. Add every scheme together. Every mule account, every wire, every dollar the network touched or was positioned to touch across 18 months, and prosecutors arrived at their headline number. More than $300 million conspired to be laundered. Not all of it was successfully stolen cash, but every dollar of it ran through, or was meant to run through, the machine one man built from nothing. Here's the paradox that ends this story. A man running a $300 million laundering network should have been the most careful, most invisible person alive. Instead, he was one of the most public. Investigators didn't need to break any encryption to build their case. They needed a browser. His own posting patterns and metadata helped confirm basic identifying details. Posts from inside luxury hotel suites helped narrow down his exact physical location. And when investigators laid his personal shopping sprees on a timeline next to the precise dates stolen funds hit his accounts, the pattern lined up with unnerving precision. On June 10, 2020, in a coordinated international operation, law enforcement raided 6 locations simultaneously and arrested 12 suspects. The haul, roughly $40 million in cash, 13 luxury vehicles worth nearly $7 million combined, dozens of phones and computers, and a list connected to an estimated 2 million potential victims worldwide. Abbas was extradited to the United States. In April 2021, he pleaded guilty to 1 count of conspiracy to commit money laundering. In November 2022, a federal judge sentenced Ramon Abbas to 135 months in federal prison, 11 years and 3 months, and ordered him to pay $1,732,841 in restitution to the victims directly tied to his case. In a letter to the court, he wrote that he regretted letting greed ruin his family's good name. The jets are gone. The fleet of rented supercars has been seized. The account with 2.8 million followers went silent. He is currently serving that sentence in the United States, with release expected around 2029. $300 million, built by a man who once had nothing and swore he'd never have nothing again. Ended by his own camera roll. No firewall was broken to catch him. No system was hacked to expose him. Investigators just had to watch him post. Every private jet, every unboxing, every time-stamped flex was, without him realizing it, a confession uploaded in real time for free straight to the people building the case against him. If you want to keep unmasking the real people behind the world's biggest heists and exactly how they got caught, hit that like button, drop a comment with your take on this case, and subscribe to Giant Theft so you never miss our next investigation.